Hello, everybody. Welcome to Watches with Dennis. Sorry I was a few seconds late. I'm actually been out mulching, and that's why the hat is on, because I am covered in leaf dust. I just threw a different shirt on so you wouldn't just see me covered in leaves. But I couldn't get done because the mower has to be recharged. It's one of those electric mowers. So unfortunately, the battery is good enough to mow the entire yard, but not mulch the entire yard. It takes a little bit too much power. So I will be finishing that up after we are done with today's live stream. But we have three new watches that we are going to go ahead and talk about. And so I wanted to go ahead and kick things off on the wrist. Well, I didn't have it on the wrist while I was mowing, but today is the Parmigiani Fluier Tonda PF Micro Rotor steel watch. So, but I decided I wasn't going to wear that with the lawnmower, though. I put enough scratches in it already. It probably really would not matter much. So let me go ahead and greet everyone. Oh, Joe, a new YouTube member. Well, thank you for joining the 99-cent club. I do appreciate it. Hopefully you find it worthwhile. And if you don't, hey, it was only 99 cents. So not too much lost there. Travis, good morning, Travis, says the Damascus PRX is very nice. Okay, well, we are going to talk about that last, actually. See, I saved the best one for last. That's the bait of YouTube, to try and keep a whole extra 2 viewers in place. So that'll be the third one that we cover today. Koji, thank you for being a club member. Nice hat. Well, thank you. This is the hat I usually wear when I'm going around and doing stuff. So this is a 2003 NCAA Final Four hat. And the reason why I have this hat and not now that year, Syracuse won. Syracuse versus KU in the final. I went to both schools. So my undergrad is KU and my master's is from Syracuse. And so it's the only time that I think since I went there that they both were together. And then actually, it was the only time they faced off as a grand championship. And KU's won since then. I've got KU hats too. So don't worry. And let's see, Kevin. Good morning, Kevin. Glad you could join me. And Duncan, thank you so much. And also, thank you for being a club member. Okay, no pre-recorded videos or any real housekeeping to go over. So let's go ahead and kick it off. And we're not, as I noted, kicking it off with the Tissot PRX. I wanted to save that one for last because I think that one has some interesting questions related to it. However, what I do want to start with is this. Again, link in the video description to the 3 articles that I am using to provide you these photos today. They're all from 3 different websites. This is from A Blog to Watch. Now, this is a new Christopher Ward. And it seems like there have been a lot of new Christopher Wards lately, but it's probably no more than there usually is. But this is their C1 Jump Hour Mark V watch. Not the first time they've done a jump hour, but I guess they've sort of resurrected this for current times. You could see the image here, but the watch itself is 39 millimeters in diameter. Lug to lug is about 47.3 millimeters. Lug width on this watch is 20 millimeters. Thickness is not slim. It's 14 millimeters in thickness. Only 3 would be terrible. 3 atmospheres. 30 meters of water resistance. This is powered by the JJ01. That's, the JJ01 is the jump hour module. It actually rests on an SW200-1 movement. So it's a modular jump hour. That explains why the watch is as thick as it is. But because the SW200 is the base, like you would expect, 4 hertz movement, approximately 38 hours power reserve. And you can see it comes on some different strap configurations. So the leather is $2,975. I don't know if this counts as leather as well, this like cloth thing. I'm guessing so, but you can get it on bracelet as well. The bracelet is, of course, the more expensive option, and that would be $3,165 US. My understanding is that that is all in with tariff, tax, all that is applied to these prices. Now, as you can see with this image in particular, jump hour rests at the 12 o'clock position. And then they've gone with kind of an invisible hand. You can see the clear, like, I don't know what they made it out of, acrylic or some form of plastic. But so give it kind of that sense to float. Loomed, obviously, since you can see the loom there. And then that, so it has a hand to point you towards the minutes. So, and then you can see the markings at the chapter ring for those minute indicators. So all said and done, I thought this was interesting. Jump hours I have one. I'm trying to think of how I want to approach this. Close case back for the movement, which again with the SW200, I don't think is particularly surprising. I don't know if they have any images with this on bracelet. It doesn't look like A Blog to Watch does, but I think they've noted what type of bracelet it is at the bottom. I don't care for how a blog to watch formats their introductory pieces because they don't summarize all of the watch specifications in one box. So I try and get it put together ahead of time. Thankfully, AI actually makes that a lot easier than it used to be, where I literally had to read and pull things from paragraph by paragraph. But let's see. Yes, the bracelet is their 5-link consort bracelet. Okay, so that, yes, so they've got the $29.75 for the strap and $31.65 for the bracelet in US dollars. Okay, so let's go ahead and have a conversation about this. I don't know what you all who are watching live feel about jump hours. Let me start with I think the positives. I think Christopher Ward with this configuration does a good job of avoiding what I feel like we've run into with a number of other jump hour watches, and that is it doesn't feel like there's necessarily too much negative space on the watch. At least that's a rub I've sort of had with jump hours. So I'm thinking about those jump hours, and I know that they're kind of they're a resuscitation of the throwback, but those Cartier jump hours that they came out with this year for Watches and Wonders, a lot of negative space on those. While I thought it was quite a bit more attractive than that, the kind of bathroom scale style look that we saw out of Braymont's jump hour, which they recently put in steel rather than they launched it in bronze at Watches and Wonders, if I remember correctly. But that's now available in steel. Again, a lot of negative space. I think that one looks reasonably well balanced, but this looks more like a traditional watch, just with a very emphasized jump hour, which again, for telling time is something I do think is noteworthy. So I said I do have a jump hour watch. I have a Mr. Jones watch. It's my pinball one, the Ricochet. The jump hour is in the back box. I shouldn't air quote that. It's really called the back box, but the back box of the pinball art on the watch face. And the issue is because of how it's layered and modular and how small it is, it's very hard to read the hour. It's harder to read the hour than it is to read the minutes, and the minutes are a rotating disc. So again, a lot of negative space in the case of Mr. Jones occupied by art. So there's a reason for it. Here, they've made it so that the watch feels a lot more legible. And so I think from a practical wearability standpoint, this watch is much, much better than the Mr. Jones approach. That being said, I don't really like the way it looks. I think this is a relatively, and I like boring watches, but this is a pretty boring execution of the jump hour. I think it maybe looks a little odd to have the hour itself be this large, disproportionately large. Again, we see this all the time with Rolex as a case in point for the date window. But I don't know, with the hour, I get why they've done it, but it feels a little odd. I also think that we have a bit of an issue with, some people will have a bit of an issue with it being a mechanical watch, no seconds hand, which is something that people generally like to have on mechanical movements. I personally don't really care about that aspect of it. The price, though, I do care about the price, and I have a problem with not inherently with SW200s, though I know a number of you have had really bad experiences. I don't think I've ever owned an actual SW200 base movement, but a lot of you have complained about like the issues with hand winding them and so on and so forth. Obviously, very meager power reserve at 38 hours. It's a very old movement. It's not particularly surprising. But these watches are $3,000. So, I mean, it's just under 3 on leather, and then it's almost 3,200 on bracelet. And I don't see $3,000 worth of watch here. And because it's closed case back, it's not like the movement is well finished. So I feel like you are paying a very high premium for a jump hour. And I guess if you are not familiar, and again, I'll bring back up Mr. Jones watches, jump hours can be had much, much, much less than $3,000. So that's kind of where I'm stuck. And I've minimized because I know that Ricochet is in the main collection. I'll give you an example of it. Instead of pulling up my photo, mine was the first release, so the colorways are different and stuff. But Ricochet is so much cheaper than this, and you'll be able to kind of get the sense of what I was trying to go with. It defaulted to the UK site because they are a UK site. But here you go. All right, so this is Ricochet, so you have an understanding. $425. Okay, here's the jump hour. the 7, you can see it's sunken, and then there's a disc that shows you in 5-minute increments, but it's always rotating, it's always moving. And this is a mechanical movement, it's not quartz. So that's what I mean by wanting to say that if you want you see all the negative space, but it's occupied with Brian Clater's art in this particular instance, but very little of the watch is actually dedicated to time telling. And in the original version, by the way, they did have the small seconds. It didn't show seconds, but it was designed. There were cutouts around these. These are called inserts on the playfield, these triangles. And it was like a little Morse code message. It was designed to look like the flashing of a pinball machine. But I wanted to just bring it up as a comparison to this. So obviously versus Ricochet, much easier to tell the time, much more traditional looking watch here. But I'm going to say staid design. I don't think it's particularly attractive watch. And when we factor in the $3,000 price point, I'm on the struggle bus, is an expression I like to use a lot. And I'm on the struggle bus with this watch. I just don't see the value here. It's not particularly interesting. It's okay. It's like I don't love how they've enlarged the jump hour, but it's okay. But everything else about the watch, I find wholly unexciting. So anyway, I'm like, it's just, and this is me with a lot of the Christopher Ward catalog, quite frankly. But let's see. Duncan says, I'm not keen on this. I've seen it compared with the Minion with one eye. You see, okay, I get it. Okay, I'm now remembering the Minion. Okay, so some people have compared it to the Minion with the one eye. Okay. Traska have just released a jump hour that seems more innovative and I think looks better too. Okay, I'm not familiar with the Traska jump hour. I haven't seen that one. So I'm going to search for it because I'm going to guess that's going to be a more traditional looking watch than what we saw from Mr. Jones. And I think I found the page with it. I would like to know the price on the Traska. I think this is this what we're talking about? Yeah. So this is an interesting approach, but it's a GMT. So I'm not sure if it's not apples to apples per se, but that's a really cool, their website's really quite nice, actually. Wow. I don't think I've been to Traska's website in at least a year, but anyway, interesting. Okay. Underachieving watch collector says, I like a good looking dial, not a bathroom scale. That's and again, Christopher Ward, I feel here has done much better than many watches I've seen in terms of making this feel more like a regular watch. But this is a common issue with jump hours. And I would say that generally speaking, you might want to just avoid jump hours outright because they're probably always going to have a little bit of an issue. It is cool that they loom the background of the jump hour itself, but again, it's not like that's hard to do. Hagfish, good morning. Hagfish says, I made sure I'm able to watch your live stream. Hello, everyone. Also, well, I'm glad you can be here. I hope you enjoy it. Let's see. I'm going to probably maybe mispronounce your name, but welcome, Incomententia. This Christopher Ward doesn't feel like it could possibly follow its 3x manufacturing cost formula. You are correct, but there's a reason. All right. So yes, your logic is undeniable and you are right. Here's part of the provision with this $3,000 price point to note. I should just highlight the relevant part here from the A Blog to Watch article. Both prices, the $29.75 and the $31.65 for bracelet, include duties and taxes for U.S. customers. So this is the U.S. price with the tariffs. So that's why it's as high as it is. Again, it's using a Swiss movement, Swiss tariff rate. Last I haven't followed it super closely because that's all just went before the U.S. Supreme Court this week. But in terms of the legality of the tariffs, but Swiss imports are subjected to a very high tariff, higher than the EU's tariff. So anyway. That's why it's as high as it is. That's not just their markup. That's also they're passing the cost of the tariffs on to us. Hackfish laughs at the notion of bathroom scale. Bathroom scale, it's super accurate. In fact, there is a watch. It's the De Bethune. Tim Masso got a De Bethune, and it's the one. It's always been his favorite, but To me, I don't like the design at all because it always looked like a bathroom scale watch, very well done bathroom scale. But I'm jumping around again to see if I could give you an image of it. All right, I found his Instagram of it. Um, don't know if I can really. With the power of zoom and enhance, there you go. So you see, it's it's a video. Okay, so it's got the jump and all this, but you see, this is like you can even see the spot for your feet. These are where your feet go, so that you can look at the date. And you got the little jewels and all that. Very, very, very well finished watch. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely. Would I ever want it? No, absolutely not, because it looks like a bathroom scale, and I can't see past that. Okay, so reactions from those of you who are watching live don't seem particularly. I'm sorry, I just saw someone's message. I'll interrupt myself. Uh, Al's going de bathroom. I respect that. That's full on dad joke territory. Hagfish adds, by the way, between a Christopher Ward Trident dive watch and the Timex Atelier, which one would you get, Dennis? I would try the Timex simply because I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by the Timex Atelier, plus that style, kind of boring traditional look, works well for me. That being said, while I'm not a fan of most of the Christopher Ward designs, I think the Trident is a very competent looking watch. And if I was interested in like a sub $1,000, at least pre-tariff, you could get them sub $1,000 dive watches. Christopher, I've heard very good things about them, and I think the Trident looks fine. Both designs look fairly derivative to other things. I think there's some more interesting casework being done by the Atelier line out of Timex. However, I'm a little more concerned about the movement Timex has gone with in that watch versus what Christopher Ward has done. So those are just some of my basics. I can't say you won't go wrong either way, because I don't know about the robustness really behind the Timex. From others who have owned a lot of Christopher Wards, the Trident is pretty respected. So it's the safer play, but I would go with the Timex. Junior, welcome to the live stream. Glad you can make it. And Hagfish says, I see both the Trident and the Timex are on the same price point. Yeah. I think because both of them also are, I believe, using Swiss movements. It's just Timex is using a brand that like has cloned the Sellita, whereas Christopher Ward uses the Sellita itself. But you know who's not using the Sellita? My transitions are just on point today. Atelier Wen. So let's talk about Atelier Wen. We've talked about them before, but definitely not at this price point. So this is a article with monochrome. So you can go, again, video description has the link to this. And this is their new full tantalum integrated bracelet watch called Inflection. So it has several different dial colorways. I'll put up maybe one that's this is the one I like the most, but one that's a little easier to look at. But let me go ahead and give you because I've got summarized off on another window, give you the basic information. So there are 3 versions, but they're all the different dialways. So they've got the U, the Mio. I'm not sure. I don't know how to pronounce Chinese words, and the Yuan variants, I guess, are what they are called. Don't ask me which are which. I'm sure the article explains it. But they're all 40 millimeters in diameter. Lug to lug is actually pretty modest. It's 45 millimeters, but not too surprising because of the integrated nature of it. The integrated bracelet, again, the lug width itself isn't particularly important, but I guess if you want to know about the bracelet, it starts at the watch at 22 millimeters and it tapers down to 18 millimeters at the clasp. Thickness of the watch is approximately 10.2 millimeters, so pretty modest. 100 meters water resistance. This is driven by a Girard Perregaux movement. It's a customized GP03300, which I don't know anything about. It's an automatic 4 hertz movement, and it's 48 hours of power reserve. So, okay, I know a little bit about it. That's what I know. I'll show you a picture of it in a bit. Price. Oh, guys. I think all of the pictures here are on the bracelet. You can get this on strap for $19,800. This bracelet version, $29,800 US. So it's a $30,000 watch, $20,000 if you would like to give up the tantalum bracelet, and I have no idea why you would give that up. So you've got the blue dial version, you've got the black one I showed you, and then you've got this one, which is this sort of yellow center to a sea green, which I dislike the most because I think it's hardest to read. in terms of the numerals. Very interesting. I don't know how to describe these numeral fonts, but a very interesting numeral font choice. Here's a picture of the appears to be milled clasp. Tantalum, interesting metal, not particularly expensive metal, but I believe it's hard to work with, which is probably the motivation behind. I think like if you're thinking like is tantalum like expensive like gold? No, I think tantalum's like 1/200th the price of gold per ounce. I think I saw someone post that in a comment, probably on this article. The blue is a pretty clean look. I don't know about these numerals. I think the numerals are going to be pretty polarizing for people. I don't really like the numerals on this blue watch. I like them fine on this one where it's got the gilt look against black. It reminds me of something like the gilt dials that Tudor has done, but more playful for obvious reasons, given the nature of this almost a calligraphy style font used for them. Easy to read watch. I like the handset. Tantalum is an interesting metal. I know I like the color of it. I've never seriously personally pursued a tantalum watch. And if I wanted a tantalum watch, I definitely would try and find one for under $30,000 because I would want it on bracelet. But unfortunately, this is a big jump for Atelier Wen. Well, I don't know what their median price point is. I wanted to say it's like around $3,000. So this is significant. We're talking like, we're talking 10x. We've jumped up in the price ladder in 10x. And Inflection's shape. I'm going to say it bothers me. I don't mean it visually bothers me. I think this looks like, as a watch, setting aside what will probably be controversial about the font on the dial, I think this is a nice looking watch. I think the bracelet looks nice. I think the case looks nice. But I think the flanges here on the sides are going to inevitably invite comparisons to the Nautilus. And in that regard, it frustrates me in the same way that, though not to the same extent, that the Cubitus frustrates me, because they kept the porthole flanges on the Cubitus, but it doesn't look like a porthole. So why are you doing it? Again, this is a round watch with flanges added to it. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it looks okay. When you do it, even if you didn't mean it that way, it feels to me like Atelier Wen is trying to make you think of the Nautilus. And this is a frustration I've had with Christopher Ward. A lot of their watches, once we move past like the Tridents and stuff, have felt to me like they're trying to invoke some expensive watch. And so when you look at it, it makes you pause and briefly wonder what you're looking at. And I'm not a fan of that as a watch collector. I want you to look at this from across the room and go, that's an Atelier Wen, not, is that a Nautilus? And then you're like, oh no, it's an Atelier Wen. This is not the nature of the conversation that I'd want it to be. That being said, they may have just gone with it for particular design reasons. And the flanges aren't inherently a problem. I think the Cubitus, well, I don't love it because it's so derivative. I think it's a better looking watch than the Nautilus. I never liked the Nautilus shape. So the square, I think, looks better. But then when you see all the Nautilus DNA in it, it makes me kind of go, why couldn't it be more unique? But that's a Patek problem, not an Atelier Wen problem. I think, though, bottom line is not a lot of people are going to be in the market for this simply because the price is so high, just so high from a brand that we talk about this on this channel quite a bit. Can a brand move up the price ladder? Absolutely. We see Timex Timex is trying to do it. We'll see if it works. We've seen Seiko do it for years successfully, but I haven't seen Seiko say, here's your Seiko 5. Oh yeah, and by the way, now here is the Seiko that's priced retail at the same price as a Daytona. I'm trying to kind of keep the same scale, where we take a $150 watch and then we're going to say it's a $15,000 watch. And here, all right, maybe that's more extreme of a jump, but here we get a brand that's known for like sub $3,000 watches, and now they're playing in the $30,000 price point for a non-precious metal watch. And a lot of people, again, I don't have expertise on tantalum. I think I read that it's harder to work with. I don't know how harder it is. I don't know how many people are going to appreciate that. The bottom line is it's not precious metal, and you've priced this watch like you can find through, I'd say maybe gray market or second, but unworn like full gold Santos watches for this price. You could find Bell and Ross full golds for just under this price point. So I'm a little flummoxed, I suppose, if this brand has I've heard a lot of appreciation, and I've liked a number of Atelier Wen designs. I don't think they're there yet to demand $30,000 for a watch, but I might be wrong. I don't know. Depends how hardcore their fans are. This feels to me almost like Ming, but even Ming didn't initially jump their prices like this. This is a real big scale up for a brand. I don't know. It feels like Icarus. Are they flying too close to the sun? I don't know. Here's a picture of all three of them, so you can. Still, the middle, my favorite. I do think this is a nice looking watch overall. Something about the blue with the white, it's off putting to me, and I do not like the green one. The black one I do like though. Okay, so what do you guys have to say about all of this sort of stuff? We're gonna start with Koji. Welcome, Koji, and thank you for being an club member. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I like that the numerals have a Chinese character feel to them. I think that's part of why I like the black and gilt. I feel like there's a cleanness to it, though. I think the white and blue feels almost like a Chinese porcelain look to it. For me, to me it invokes that, but I'd almost invert it and say white watch with blue numerals would have looked better. But with the black one, I also like this kind of calligraphical pattern really here at the edge of the chapter ring, essentially. Whereas the numerals, I think they stand out. I think they look elegant in gold against black. I just struggle to read the green one, and the blue one, again, it's sort of that more porcelain look, but it feels, I don't know. The refined, maybe it's just the more boring style of the black one appeals to me. I just feel it looks the best, the most refined, and that those aspects of it, I think, are the aspects that feel Chinese, and where this does feel like it's got its own unique DNA. But then we've got the case shape, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's like the Nautilus met what's the Moser thing, the Endeavor or whatever their integrated bracelet watch is. I don't know. Something, I don't know. It feels like a hodgepodge case wise, and it feels to me like they're trying to sell the watch on the tantalum more than anything else. I did say I was going to show you guys a picture of the movement, and I did not keep my word. So here's a shot of that Gerard Perregaux movement that drives this. Again, this is a customized version of the GP03300 movement. So that, and in terms of movement finishing and all that, yes, it looks nice to me, but again, at $30,000, I expect movement finishing and with beveled polishing and all the rest of it. So I'm not surprised at this. I wanted to go ahead and note it though, that it is in fact present here. I think this is maybe a better shot of how this actually ends up looking. And interesting idea with the rotor. The rotor is very cool looking. So again, there's some interesting design choices here that I think actually do work quite well for this watch. But $30,000 for an Atelier Wen, I don't know. I do know. I think it's too much. Hackfish laughs and says, "It didn't occur to me what Atelier Wen. It just reminded me of the Timex, and I thought that's the watch you meant. Pass on that Atelier Wen. It looks bizarre." It's got some interesting choices going on to it, but it does look like a luxury watch to me. It's just, I don't think it's going. I don't expect it to do well, but I think it is limited too. Let's scroll to the bottom of so looking at the pictures, let's see what this is. All right. They're going to build them by an application basis, and each application will be vetted internally. Okay, so now I'm getting more judgmental, because now it sounds like they think that they're AP or Longa deciding whether or not you can have stainless steel sports watches. I don't know about commanding that. But let's see. For first year of production, 30 pieces of the launch edition will be produced, and 70 pieces will be split between the black and the blue. So the green 130, and then they're going to split 70 the other two ways. So they're making 100 of them for year one. So this is like a Chopard tactic. So it's not limited; it's limited production. I'm like, I don't know. I'm going with my Icarus analogy. I think Atelier Wen is flying way too close to the sun on what they think they can command in this market. But maybe they're there, and I just didn't realize it. I guess I'll see what you all happen to think. Back to what I was going to say from Junior. I'm a Timex fan. My grandpa owned a Timex. My dad owned a Timex, and I have a few. I actually do not have a Timex. I believe Timex was my watch brand I had up until I was in high school. And then, because I had a watch, at least I've had watches my whole life, unsurprised, as old as I am, unsurprisingly. But like, I think I had the same watch from middle school on up into high school. And then once I started working in high school, like when I was 16, 17-ish, uh, my parents got me a Citizen. And then I had that Citizen up until I bought my Explorer 2 after I started my career but I wore that Citizen for probably a decade before I got the Rolex used back when they weren't popular. So anyway, but I've thought about getting an Atelier Timex because I'm not really drawn to the non-Atelier stuff that Timex is doing. Like, they do a lot of Peanuts stuff, and I'm just, I read Peanuts growing up, but I just don't want to wear it on my wrist. None of them have. There have been a few that I thought were kind of neat, but the Marlins, I did look a bit at the Marlins, but I already have a watch that kind of looks like the Marlin dial, so it feels a little redundant to me. But back to Atelier Wen, Koji goes, 30,000. Yeah, Koji, that's the part that makes it so interesting. It's the 30,000 is the icing on this very interesting tantalum cake. Hagfish says that looks like an AliExpress watch rather than 30,000. I disagree, but I can definitely understand why the some of the choice, like if the dial fonts don't work for you, I could see where maybe that impression could come from. However, the casework and the movement finishing is way too high for me to ever mistake it for AliExpress. Junior says if I can get it to display, if we want a Chinese watch, I'd get a Seagull. Seagull, I actually have looked at getting some Seagull. Seagull, incidentally, they fly a little close to the sun too on some stuff. They don't tend to push it outside of China, but they have a more luxury end that they've got. Now, I don't think maybe they have some exceptions, but not like $30,000 pieces, but stuff that's a few thousand, they do a few things like that. Underachieving Watch Collector says, jumping the shark while smoking crack. Well, I mean, we don't know which drug of choice might have actually been involved. Duncan goes, the finishing on the edges of the hands doesn't look like a $30,000 watch. I don't know if I can. This photo I kind of like for the dial, but I think it's obfuscating the handset. I don't know if Monochrome has a really great photo where we can get close enough to truly appreciate the hands. Maybe here I could see the criticism. That being said, when I've gone under loop on some of my other luxury watches, bear in mind they're not $30,000 watches. The hands often look a little smudgy. Maybe they do. Maybe they've got prints on them or dust on them or whatever. So it's not been unusual for me to notice that the hands aren't always necessarily as well finished as the movement is, which is maybe odd, but I suppose in a lot of instances when you like take a watch for service and stuff, the watchmaker can pretty easily take a little air blower, a little thing. I got one of those, and you just and just blow the dust out of the movement. But if they're not accessing the dial side, they won't do it to the dial when you go and take it, unless you ask them to, or if they're fully servicing the watch. Depends what you need done, I suppose. I'll put these back up so you can see them. All right, let's see. Blissful Ignorance, welcome to live stream, says this looks more like it's a Chinese heritage than a Cubitus. Yeah, I don't mean to compare it per se to the Cubitus. What I want to compare it to is the flanges to the Nautilus, and that took me down the rabbit hole of the Cubitus keeping the flanges. And so to me, flanges feel Nautilus derivative, and it's not necessarily fair, but life isn't fair, and this channel isn't always fair. So it's what I thought of when I saw the watch. Ristville says tantalum on AliExpress. Yes, it wouldn't shock me actually if there is some available. Maybe not as a watch though. Hagfish says metal must be made of Mira, mithril, and dragon scales to cost $30,000. I think they're going to argue it's the difficulty to finish it. Al says Atelier Wen pigs fly is when I'll buy it. The play on words continue to flow freely without. Koji says, yeah, I like the movement much better than the dial and case shape. And Cool Electable says, I fall in love more and more with vintage pre-owned the more I see these prices. That is completely understandable. And I am a big believer in buying used, especially luxury watches, because of the savings you can find. Hagfish says, Dennis, if I had $30,000 to spend, I'd just buy a Breitling chronograph, Tudor Pelagus 39mm, the IWC Spitfire, and a Rolex GMT Master 2, and that'd be it. But you could have an inflection. Just choose not to. But we all make our own choices. Speaking of choices, I do want to. Oh, and Junior has noted that Seagull has a few $5,000 watches. Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure kind of where where the ceiling was on the watches. I heard they had some pretty high end stuff, and then when I looked, I saw a few things that were over 1,000, but I didn't spend a lot of time there when I was quasi researching it. I'm going to say quasi because I didn't do a lot of it. All right, here's the one that I think most of you all are interested in: Tissot, right? PRX. A lot of us have either owned PRXs. I've had a PRX, or we're aware of them. Pretty much anyone who's into watches is aware of Tissot's PRX line because it's the most successful watch that Tissot currently produces, which Swatch Group is in desperate need of their hits. So this is the new one. It is not tantalum, but Damascus steel. So this is, again, the PRX Paramatic 80 38 millimeter Damascus steel. I won't read you the reference number because it's like 12 digits long. 38 millimeter diameter watch, obviously, from the name would suggest. Lug to lug is believed to be about 37.5 millimeter is what I've read. My little AI search tool didn't find it officially. It's always weird with the lug to lug because bear in mind the first links should really be included if it's a bracelet watch, but this isn't a bracelet watch, it's a strap. So you could probably put it on a pretty small wrist, even though it's a 38 millimeter watch. Thickness just under 11 millimeters, 100 meters of water resistance. So a lot of stuff we would expect out of this sort of watch. Likewise, it is the PRX, so it is the Paramatic 80 because it's the mechanical version. So this is a 3 hertz movement with 80 hours of power reserve, hence Paramatic 80 notation. Price is $1,175 US, with the watch being done up in Damascus steel. So giving you some shots only on strap. This is not on a Damascus steel bracelet. You can see that they do Damascus steel for the pin buckle. The casework is done up in Damascus steel, and then there is Damascus steel patterning here done for the dial. So Damascus steel is not something I have owned ever. I associate it with knives, but I have seen a number of watches start to play in this space. I actually think Damascus steel is very attractive looking. There's not really any property to Damascus steel that I think warrants getting it over regular steel. It's an aesthetic choice as far as I can understand it. And so whether you like the look of Damascus steel or not will drive whether or not you're into this sort of thing. I think it looks pretty cool. The dial is actually less my favorite than just the case. Like, I like the subtleness of the case work with the Damascus. I think that's the most attractive thing. I could see that the dial kind of feels like you're dealing with like urban camouflage instead of kind of the spirit of the Damascus steel itself. But it's a pretty cool look about what's going on. My article, again, link in the video description, is Hodinkee for this one, so you can go ahead and take a look at this. Now, this article from Hodinkee is only focused on the Damascus steel. I do want to note this watch dropped with a 38 millimeter Paramatic PRX with in titanium. I just chose not to talk about it because I think a lot of us we understand titanium at this point. It only made sense that the PRX would eventually be out in titanium. But that is available as well if you are interested in that. I just thought this was the more visually interesting thing. But the dial is, in fact, I wanted to confirm it, but yes, the dial is produced in Damascus steel. So this is not just like they printed on a brass dial and made the pattern. It is Damascus steel for the dial. So like if I had it, would I wear it? Yes, I would. The thing that I wondered about that I wanted to ask those of you who are watching live, and if you're watching the recording, you can always just leave your opinion as a comment, and I will go back and read it. But 1,175 for me, I felt that the strength of the PRX is it gets you a mechanical watch, or quartz if you want it, and that's what mine was quartz. But it can get you a mechanical movement watch, Swiss made, integrated bracelet style, reasonably comfortable, by the way, decent enough finishing, for under $1,000. Does the PRX move at over $1,000? In Damascus steel, I would say I think it will. However, I think it would have done better, and maybe they'll do it eventually, but I think it would have done better if the Damascus steel bracelet was available. This is an integrated bracelet style. The thing I don't like about this watch is I do not like the look of transitioning to the strap from the Damascus steel. This is you see the integrated, these middle portions, because this is supposed to look integrated. I personally don't think straps on integrated style watches pretty much ever look good. They might be comfortable, but I can't think of one off the top of my head that I think, wow, that looks better than the bracelet. I think the bracelet has always looked better on every version of every watch that's integrated I have ever seen, ever, ever. I think I've said that enough now. That this is not available with a full Damascus steel bracelet, I think is a pretty big miss. But I think the reason Tissot didn't do it is I think the price would have been bad. Like, I wonder if it would have been over $2,000. I don't know. It's a lot more metal, but it's still steel, guys. It's not tantalum. It's not a hard material necessarily to work with, as near as I understand it. But they do have to create the patterning. So I don't know. Would it have only pushed it up to 1,500? If so, I think they should have done it. If it would have pushed it to 2,000, I think maybe that would have been an issue. Here's a shot of the case back. The Paramatic PRX, not a pretty movement to look at, but again, at the price point, you shouldn't expect it to have any sort of finishing. Nice that they put the little waves on the rotor, though. I do think that's a nice little, tie into the Damascus steel nature. I do like that they print Damascus steel on it, just in case you forgot from looking at all the Damascus steel on the watch. But that's my take. All right, so let's see what you guys think. So Hagfish says, I just said mithril, and now there's Damascus steel. Yes, but if it was Valerian steel, that would be when you would be really interested in getting it. Junior says it's awful. Okay, so Junior's not a Damascus Steel PRX fan. Is it the dial, Junior, that's pushing you over the edge, or do you just not like Damascus and watch in general? For me, the dial is a bit much, but given it's so gray, I think that in real light, like this lighting looks subtle. I think even in bright lighting, this will actually be even less noticeable. But I'm not sure about that. Let's see. Hagfish says, was responding to Junior, but says that he had a Seagull 1963 40 millimeter chronograph, about $200. At day 24 of owning, the winding crown broke. Good thing Chrono 24 had a 30-day fault return, and I was able to return it. That is the reason why I've not bought a Seagull 1963. I actually think as a chronograph that it looks really good. I think it has a very Chinese style to it, which I like. I really like the way it looks with the dial. I like the colorway. I like a lot about it. I've just heard too many negative things about the Seagull chronograph movement, which is the same reason why I have never ended up with a Studio Underdog Series 1, because I like the watermelon a lot, but I don't want to deal with a broken chronograph. I had a Hamilton H31 chronograph. The movement broke on me twice. It was serviced under warranty twice. It almost kept me away from mechanical chronographs. And in fact, I've only ever owned one other, which is the one I still have, which is my Zenith Chronomaster Original. But I just don't trust mechanical chronographs, at least the more affordable ones at this point. I think I just lucked out on the H31. The Valjoux 77 5X movement, which is what the H31 is built on, it's a robust, affordable movement, but they're also really thick. So that I have a separate reason for staying away. Hagfish adds, maybe my Seagull was a lemon, but I won't be getting a Seagull now until I'm thoroughly convinced or in a deep midlife crisis. Well, again, same with the issue with you get burned. That damage, that baggage that you carry with you, I think that's pretty common to be like, I had a really bad experience with Hamilton. I've never owned a Hamilton again. If I get another Hamilton, it won't be a chrono. It's just how it's going to be. Sorry that it was maybe one bad lemon, but that's just how it is. Let's see. Don Natal, sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly, but thank you for watching live stream, says, this is the one PRX that I would wear. Okay, I got rid of my PRX because the reason was I wanted to try out an integrated bracelet watch before I got a more expensive one. And I liked it okay, but I got mine right around when the 35 millimeters came out. And given my wrist size is 6.75 inches, the 40 millimeter was just, it just felt a little big. It didn't overhang, but it felt big. It felt big on the wrist. And I think I would have been a lot happier with a smaller watch. So that was kind of my issue. So I went ahead and let it go. But I sold it pretty easily. But I like a lot of the looks of the PRX. It's in most instances, it's a pretty inoffensive watch. But they've started to play more and more with materials, which I think is smart for Tissot. I know, like from a collector standpoint, it gets a little tiresome. It's like all the Moonswatch iterations, right? We see the same thing with the PRX. Oh my God, another PRX. Like, when will it end? When will they stop making more and more PRXs? But it's a successful design. Why not play around with new materials? And so again, like them coming out with a 38 millimeter titanium, here we go with the 38 millimeter Damascus steel. I just think the lack of the bracelet, that's just the one miss here. Though I don't love the dial on this. I like some of the other dials more, but I do like the case. I do like how the Damascus looks on this case. I think it's very attractive. Riskful says, I prefer heated Damascus. Hagfish is a little surprised at the price for the Tissot. And again, this is 1,175 US dollars. Yeah, it's getting up there a bit dollar wise. I just think, there's a mental barrier crossing the $1,000 threshold, fully acknowledging that we were around the $800 price point for the mechanical PRXs when they first came out. So it's not like a huge dollar jump, but percentage wise, it is quite a bit higher. Hagfish says, it has a Paramatic 80 movement still, right? Yes, it does. The cosmetics changed, but the movement stayed the same. Yes, it's still the power. In fact, I think Hodinky, I think I had it up earlier. They have a picture of the move. You can't see very much of the movement other than the balance because the rotor takes up so much space. But yes, it's the same old typical Powermatic 80-hour power. It's the one they use in all the Swatch stuff. I think the only thing different is the patterning on the rotor. So let's see. Collectible says, I agree that straps on integrated watches do not look good. I've seen some, depending on how it integrates in, I've seen some where it looks okay. In the case of the PRX, though, in all instances, the bracelets look better. Again, I stand by that. But I think the issue with the PRX is you have this jut out because of how they've decided to make it easy to do the swaps. It's the color contrast here. It really doesn't work for me with the Damascus. It just does not work. I think like if you had Damascus against leather or like a crocodile or an alligator strap or a small scale alligator, I think that could look really good, but not quite like with this in there. But in this case, with this piece here is fine. It looks like a link. Do a bracelet and it will look great. I think it would really look good. That's a miss. Price is the only thing I can think. Now, maybe they're going to come out with a bracelet later. Maybe they were worried about building enough of them. Maybe there's something else, but that's my frustration. Riskful says, this does give a meteorite-esque look. Thank you for mentioning that. That's probably why I don't love the dial. I actually don't like meteorite dials. I'm not drawn to wearing a meteorite dial. So I know a lot of people love them. For me, there's something about it. It's the asymmetry that doesn't feel right to me. And that's probably what I feel like I'm getting here is this pattern seems asymmetrical. Whereas when I look at the patterning on the case, like the way the lines work, they remind me of sunbursts and such, radial patterns. I don't know. It's obviously there's asymmetry to the steel in the case as well, but it's subtle and it doesn't bother me. Here, I start getting a feeling like of a camouflage. Long story short, back to your comment, I think that's what puts me off of meteorite is it's haphazard. There's no pattern to it because of how it's made, how it's created, how it formed, I should say. So just not the look I'm looking for. Hagfish says, yep, that's a Paramatic 80 movement. There's no regulator. Nope, they're designed to replace the movements when they go back. Scotty Pinball, though, also likes this Tissot. Okay, yeah, I think this is going to do well for them. I think the titanium might do better overall. And again, I wasn't planning to talk about the titanium, so I didn't load it up today, but it dropped at the same time this one did. Because there's so many titanium watches. The issue is if you were to tell me I want an affordable titanium watch, I'm going to steer you to Citizen because I think with their Duratect coating and are where you can get it, or the super titanium just in general. It's just really robust. It's going to resist scratches. Titanium loves to scratch. I had an Oris titanium and it got marked up pretty quick. So like between the two, I think this is the more creative choice, but I think commercially the titanium is the smart play. But I think this will appeal to a lot of enthusiasts who have written off the PRX as being something that more casual people are into because it just kind of got too popular for its own good, so to speak. Duncan says, I like Damascus Steel, but using it for dial and case is too much. And I think that is why it isn't on a bracelet. 38 millimeters is the size. They should have made the PRX from the start. I do like that the 38 millimeter is there because again, the one thing with the 35s were out when I bought my 40, but I was worried it was going to be too small. And so I didn't get it. 38 would have been the no-brainer choice for me if I had to pick between the three. So I agree with you. Definitely right. Interesting argument about there being too much Damascus look if they had gone with a bracelet. You might be correct with that. I would have said but of course it's playing to my biases. Would be they should have Damascus the bracelet and done something different with this dial that just would have complemented it. Maybe a sunburst style silver um, that could work, or do something completely different like black with white. I don't, markings. I don't know. But I would have gone with I think the bracelet would have just looked way better. So I would have favored changing the dial and getting me my bracelet. But I've already conveyed that I don't like the randomness of the dial. So I'm going to look for any excuse I can to go ahead and change the dial to make this a watch I would want. Let's see. Koji says, in my perverse mind, I actually prefer a regular dial, but a Damascus steel rotor would be distinct from the homely movement finishing. Again, I agree with you about the dial. The issue with the rotor, yeah, I mean, it would be a cool touch, but I'm just even though we all like movement finishing and looking at movements, how often do even like new people, once, like let's say after the first month, keep looking all the time at their movement? Do they look a lot? I don't look all the time at my movement. So even my best watches, I don't. I might glance at it just for a couple seconds, but I would rather I guess what I'm saying is I would rather the investment have been in the bracelet rather than doing anything regarding the movement. I think the movement is fine. Yes, it's the Paramatic 80. There's nothing an enthusiast is going to get excited about except maybe the 80 hours power reserve. That being said, if you're doing Damascus, I would want it more visible, and I would push it on the bracelet, and the dial should be changed because because I want it to be. Hagfish says that Seagull 1963 I had is reverse panda look, Dennis. It looks really good for a reverse panda. It fits right for a 40 millimeter, but yes, the crown's so fragile. Hagfish continues to reference, I have a Decla watch with a manual winding for 2 years now. It has a Sellita manual movement, and it didn't break. So it was more of a Seagull thing. And he clarified that it's the Decla Pilot 42 millimeter made in Germany with a Sellita manual wind movement. Also, Hagfish feels that $1,000 for a PRX is nuts, and glad that I'm not like the other YouTubers who just blindly say Seagull is an immaculate watch. You say it as it is. When I see the movement, well, thank you for the compliment. When I see the movement of the Seagull, like it's, especially for the price point, I think it's a nice looking movement. I don't think it's really finishing. That's why it's nice. It's that you see so much of the chronograph, especially a manual wind chronograph. And chronographs are just interesting to look at. There's just a lot going on with a chronograph. So even if you don't have a bunch of striping, anglage, engine turning, all the rest of it, it's still, there's so many parts to it. And the parts themselves play with the light. And brass actually looks quite good in lighting. So, like using brass movements and things like that. There's like, even those elements, like the gold colored elements, the brass pieces of the PRX, they provide visual contrast, and chronographs just, they have that, in full force. So I think that's what goes on with it. But in the grand scheme of things, the Seagull chronograph movement, it's an older movement built off of fairly reliable tech for the time, but things have progressed quite a bit since then, and it's never been like an award-winning movement. But it made sense why the Chinese bought that stuff when they could, because it was already proven. It was a proven developed movement, and I just wish that it had a better reputation. But I wish that for a lot of things. I wish that SW200 had a better reputation, because I've looked at watches with them, and I'm like, I don't know. I hear so many people say that they break if you manually wind them a lot, and I don't like to shake the watch. I've never had an SKX where, a movement where I couldn't manually wind. Every movement I've had has manual capability. So it's just one of those things. I don't know. But we all have our own approaches, of course. Let's see. Al says, this to me seems like the watch version of wearing a Hawaiian shirt with plaid pants with a striped jacket. I could see it. I wish somebody, like, here's a good shot. So, we've got the contrast of the dial with the Damascus case, and then the leather of the strap. And it could feel like it doesn't, Again, I just think it's the integrated look that alienates this strap. I think the strap would look okay if this was a traditional watch shape, still in Damascus. I think it would. I really think that just that jut out actually is what makes it feel incongruous. But that's just my take. Travis says, if I didn't already have the carbon, I would have already ordered this one. Still may. More Damascus. Damascus bracelet would be nice. Here's my advice. My advice means nothing, so ignore it at your but would be, I'd say wait on this and see if they drop the Damascus bracelet and then make the decision. The carbon, did I talk about the carbon when it came out? That one interested me more. I've never owned a carbon watch either, and I definitely thought the carbon PRX felt like it looked pretty good. Because again, it's got that patterning, but it I don't know, it feels like it works in a way. The layers work in a way for me. It doesn't feel too haphazard. Kind of like how I do like the Damascus casing, even though it breaks up in a certain way. It plays visually in a fun way. The dial's a bit much for me. Underachieving says, this PRX and a vintage leisure suit. French kiss. Ah, yes, leisure suit. Yes, I don't know, because the strap isn't polyester and your leisure suit would be. So for those of you who remember leisure suits, I actually am not old enough to remember people walking around in leisure suits, but I remember the Leisure Suit Larry video game series. So that is where all my knowledge from it extends. And I've seen Saturday Night Fever before. So. All right. Those are the watches. So it sounded like overall the Tissot PRX was the one that had the most interest. A lot of people weren't really big fans of the jump hour look on the Christopher Ward. And the Atelier Wen had some wins and some losses, mostly the $30,000 US price point. But okay, that is it for this live stream. Hopefully my mower is charged enough that I can finish mulching. So I will go out and I will do that. And I hope you guys actually do something more enjoyable than yard work. So I wish you all a good weekend. Thanks for tuning in. I will plan to be back next weekend with another live stream. And until then, take care.